The thunder cracked like God's own fury across the Texas panhandle, rattling the windows of the Harlan Ranch house until the glass hummed with dread. Jack Harlan, broad-shouldered and weathered at 52, wiped the fog from the pane and squinted into the sheeting rain, spotting a lone figure battling the mud-slick road like a ghost from some half-forgotten nightmare. "You can stay one night," he barked through the howling wind as he yanked open the door, but when the stranger gasped out his name, Harlan, the old man's blood turned to ice, for that surname hadn't darkened these doors in 20 years without dragging hell in its wake. Jack slammed the door behind them, the stranger dripping puddles on the worn oak floorboards that had borne the weight of 3 generations of Harlan boots. The young man couldn't be more than 25, with rain-plastered dark hair and eyes like storm clouds, shivered violently, clutching a sodden backpack like a shield. "Thank you, sir," he managed, voice raw from the gale. "I'm Alex. Alex Harlan." The name hung in the air, heavier than the humidity, and Jack felt his knees buckle just a fraction. Harlan, the same cursed echo that had driven his brother, Tommy, out into the world 2 decades ago, disowned and dead to them all after that shameful revelation. Tommy, the golden boy turned pariah for loving another man in a town that preached fire and brimstone on Sundays. "Sit," Jack ordered, pointing to the scarred kitchen table where family meals had once been shared in uneasy silence since the divorce 10 years back. His son, Eli, 23 and built like a colt fresh from the pasture, lingered in the doorway from the living room, arms crossed over his flannel shirt, curiosity warring with the wariness Jack had instilled in him since boyhood. Eli's mother, Clara, had left when the rumors about Tommy surfaced again, packing her bags with a Bible and a suitcase, muttering about sins that couldn't be washed away by prairie rain. Now it was just the two of them, ranch hands by day, ghosts by night, holding onto the land like it was the only thing that wouldn't betray you. Alex peeled off his jacket, revealing a lean frame honed by whatever road he'd wandered down. "City boy," Jack guessed, from the faint scent of urban exhaust clinging to his skin beneath the wet earth. "I was hitchhiking from Lubbock," Alex said, rubbing his hands together for warmth. "Storm caught me flat-footed. Didn't mean to impose." His gaze flicked around the room, taking in the faded photos on the mantel. Jack young and grinning beside Tommy, both in their rodeo best. Eli as a gap-toothed kid on a pony, Clara's empty space like a missing tooth in the frame. Jack poured black coffee into a mug, shoving it across the table without cream or sugar. Harlan Men didn't soften anything. "You said Harlan," Jack finally growled, sinking into a chair opposite, his calloused fingers drumming the wood like a countdown. Eli edged closer, perching on the arm of the sagging couch, his blue eyes narrowing under the brim of his faded Astros cap. The fire in the hearth crackled, casting shadows that danced like accusations. Alex sipped the coffee, wincing at the bitterness, then met Jack's stare head-on. "Yeah, my father's name was Thomas Harlan. Tommy, they called him." The room went still, the storm outside the only heartbeat. Tommy, the brother who'd vanished after that 4th of July barbecue, when whispers turned to shouts and the family Bible hit the floor. Tommy, who'd written one letter from San Francisco, begging forgiveness for who he was, and gotten silence in return. Tommy, dead 5 years now from some city plague called AIDS, or so the obituary in the Lubbock paper had said, mailed anonymously to Jack, a final knife twist. Eli sucked in a breath, the sound sharp as barbed wire. "Uncle Tommy? You're his son." Jack's face hardened into granite, the lines around his mouth deepening like furrows in drought-cracked soil. He'd buried that name deeper than the cattle graves out back, told Eli stories of a brother lost to wanderlust, not to the devil's preferences. But here was proof, flesh and blood, with Tommy's jawline and those damn green eyes that mirrored the ones in the old photos. "One night," Jack repeated, voice like gravel under tires. "Then you're gone at dawn. We don't traffic in ghosts here." As the clock ticked past midnight, Eli couldn't shake the stranger from his thoughts. He lay in his upstairs room, the wind moaning through the eaves like a lover scorned, staring at the ceiling beams scarred by years of neglect. Downstairs, he'd caught Alex's gaze lingering a beat too long, not on the ranch or the coffee, but on him. Eli Harlan. The dutiful son who'd spent his life roping calves and mending fences, burying his own secrets under layers of denim and denial. Eli had known since 16 that pull toward the rough hands of the rodeo boys, the way his pulse raced not for the girls at the county fair, but for the quiet strength in a man's frame. He'd prayed it away in the little white church on Route 87, confessed to Father Michaels who prescribed more work, harder prayers. But Tommy's shadow had always loomed, a warning etched in family lore. Love wrong, and you'd end up alone, forgotten. The next morning dawned brittle and clear, the sun slicing through the clouds like a judgment. Jack was up before the rooster, saddling Bess for the back pastures, his mind a whirlwind of resentment and unwelcome curiosity. Who was this boy, really? Tommy's bastard, or some con artist spinning tales for a free meal? He'd seen Alex slip out at first light, poking around the barn with Eli trailing like a shadow, the two of them murmuring over the old tractor engine that had sat idle since the drought of 18. "Your dad teach you this?" Eli asked, handing over a wrench, their fingers brushing in a spark that neither acknowledged. Alex nodded, wiping grease on his jeans. "Yeah, he was handy. Said it kept the ghosts at bay. Fix what's broken before it fixes you." Jack watched from the porch, rifle propped casual-like against the rail, though his grip tightened on the coffee mug. Breakfast was tense. Eggs scrambled with yesterday's chorizo, biscuits from a can, eaten in silence broken only by the clink of forks. "Where you headed, boy?" Jack finally asked, not looking up from his plate. Alex paused, fork midway. "California. Got a job lined up in Sacramento, bartending, nothing fancy. Just starting over." Eli's head snapped up, a flicker of something raw in his eyes. Sacramento, where Tommy had last been seen, chasing dreams in a city that didn't brand you for breathing different. "You ever think about staying put?" Eli blurted, then flushed, shoving a biscuit in his mouth to cover. The days blurred into a reluctant rhythm, the one-night promise stretching like taffy under the weight of unspoken needs. Alex stuck around to earn his keep, mending the south fence where coyotes had tested the wire, his city-soft hands blistering under Eli's rough guidance. Jack grumbled but didn't chase him off, haunted by dreams of Tommy's laugh echoing from the hayloft, the brother he'd failed by choosing silence over salvation. Eli found excuses to be near Alex, hauling feed sacks together, their shoulders bumping in the truck cab on runs to the feed store in Amarillo. Conversations turned tentative, then deep. Alex sharing stories of growing up in foster homes after Tommy's decline, the letters from a father too sick to hold him, the sting of a name that opened doors and slammed them shut. "People hear Harlan and either hug you or hex you," Alex said one evening, as they sat on the tailgate under a sky bruised purple by dusk. "Like it's a curse or a crown." Eli nodded, throat tight, the beer in his hand sweating like his palms. "Yeah, felt that." He didn't say how, not yet, the fear that coiled in his gut like barbed wire, the prayers that tasted like ash. But Alex's presence was a mirror, reflecting back the parts of himself Eli had hidden in the barn's shadowed corners, where he'd once stolen a kiss from a visiting cowboy and paid for it in weeks of silence and shame. That night, as lightning flickered on the horizon, harbinger of another storm, Eli lay awake, heart pounding with the terror of what if. What if he spoke it aloud? What if Alex saw him, really saw, and didn't run? The second storm hit harder than the first, a freak twister touching down just shy of the North 40, uprooting oaks that had stood sentinel since Jack's granddaddy claimed the deed. They rode out the fury in the root cellar, the three of them crammed shoulder to shoulder on crates of preserves, the air thick with dust and the metallic tang of fear. Alex's knee pressed against Eli's in the dark, a steady pressure that sent heat racing up Eli's spine, unspoken electricity crackling louder than the wind above. Jack clutched his shotgun like a talisman, muttering prayers half-remembered from childhood, his mind replaying the night Tommy came out, not with fireworks, but with a quiet confession over whiskey in the barn, eyes pleading for the brotherly bond that had always been their anchor. When the all-clear came, they emerged to chaos, fences twisted like pretzels, the windmill leaning drunkenly, cattle lowing in panic from the far pasture. "We ride," Jack commanded, tossing reins to Eli and Alex, the dawn light painting their faces in gold and grim determination. They spent the day herding strays, muscles burning, sweat stinging eyes, a fragile truce forged in the saddle. By noon, they'd lost a heifer to a gully wash, and Jack's temper snapped like dry lightning. This land's cursed since he left. He snarled at Alex over the carcass, shovel paused mid-dig. Tommy brought the devil's luck with him. Alex straightened, dirt-streaked and defiant, green eyes flashing. Or maybe he just needed air to breathe. Ever think the curse was yours for choking him out? The words landed like a slap, and Jack's shovel clattered to the ground. Eli froze, lasso coiled in his hands, the air between them thickening with the ghosts of old fights. Tommy's face swam in Jack's vision, young, hopeful, then broken, suitcase in hand as Jack's voice boomed. Don't come back till you're fixed, boy. Fixed. As if love was a bent axle you could hammer straight. That night, around the supper table laden with venison stew and cornbread, the silence fractured. Eli pushed his plate away, fork clattering. Dad, enough. Uncle Tommy was family. He didn't choose. It just was. Jack's head whipped up, eyes narrowing on his son like he'd uttered heresy. Alex watched, breath held, the room pulsing with the weight of revelations hovering on knife's edges. Eli stormed out to the porch, the screen door banging like a gunshot, and Alex followed after a beat, leaving Jack to wrestle his demons alone with the bottle of bourbon hidden in the pantry. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent witnesses to Eli's pacing, boots thudding on the warped boards. You don't get it, Eli said when Alex joined him, leaning on the rail with that quiet solidity that made Eli's chest ache. I say that, and it's like admitting I'm next. The town's already whispering. Harlan boys, soft in the head and softer elsewhere. Lost the feed contract last month, cause old man Wilkins heard rumors from the bar. Alex turned, silhouetted against the Milky Way, his voice soft as summer rain. Rumors? Or truths you're tired of hiding? Eli's breath hitched, the question a hook in his gut, pulling at threads he'd knotted tight for years. In the days that followed, the ranch mended slow as a broken bone, but the men unraveled faster. Jack took to long rides alone, returning with dust-caked boots and a gaze turned inward, sifting through memory's rubble for the brother he'd buried alive. One afternoon, he found Tommy's old journal wedged behind a beam in the attic, leather-bound, pages yellowed, filled with sketches of San Francisco hills and poems that bled vulnerability. I love him like the ocean loves the shore, relentless, carving stone to fit my waves. Jack read by lantern light, tears carving tracks down cheeks cracked like the earth after rain, the words a balm and a blade. Tommy had loved fiercely, unapologetically, and Jack had responded with fear disguised as righteousness. Was that the real storm, the one that had ravaged them all? Eli and Alex, meanwhile, wove a tentative thread of their own, mending wire under the relentless sun, hands brushing as they twisted barbs, conversations dipping into shallows then plunging deep. Alex spoke of his mother, a fleeting figure who'd handed him off to relatives when Tommy's illness bloomed, of bar fights and dive joints where fists flew for stolen glances, of the ache for roots that didn't reject you. I came back east looking for pieces of him, Alex admitted, hammering a post with more force than needed. Didn't expect to find Harlan's still standing. Eli hammered beside him, rhythms sinking like heartbeats. We're barely. Dad's a fortress with cracks a mile wide. Me, I'm just trying not to fall through. The admission hung, and Alex paused, tool still, turning to meet Eli's eyes, blue meeting green, a collision soft as fog, charged as thunder. That evening, as cicadas chorused their dirge, Eli found Jack in the barn, journal clutched like contraband. He forgave you, Dad, Eli said, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. In the letters he sent me, after you threw them out, said you were doing what you thought right, protecting the name. Jack's shoulders sagged, the weight of years sloughing off like old hide. Protecting? I killed him, son, piece by piece. The confession cracked the air, and Eli stepped forward, hand on his father's arm, a touch rare as rain in July. Then let us fix it. Alex's blood, and maybe more. The words tumbled out, unplanned, Eli's face burning as the truth spilled. The hidden loves, the closet's suffocation, the hope flickering like a match in wind. Jack pulled away, but not in anger, shock, raw and reeling. You too. The question was a whisper, laced with grief for the son he'd armored against the world, only to wound him deepest. Outside, Alex lingered by the corral, unaware, watching fireflies dance like lost souls. The family teetered on the precipice, one truth away from freefall or flight. Word of the stranger's arrival had trickled through the county like creek water after a pour. First to the diner in town, where tongues wagged over pie slices, then to the church picnic, where matrons clucked about prodigals returning. By week's end, the Harlan Ranch became a reluctant beacon, drawing curious eyes and veiled barbs. Reverend Hayes stopped by unannounced, Bible in hand, his Ford pickup kicking up dust as he pulled into the drive. "Heard you've got a Harlan ghost haunting your halls, Jack," he said, shaking hands firm, but eyes scanning for sin. Jack, elbow deep in engine grease, wiped his brow and forced a nod. "Just a nephew, passing through. Weather's fickle." Eli watched from the barn door, Alex at his side sorting tack, their shoulders inches apart, a proximity that felt both sanctuary and snare. The Reverend's gaze lingered on Alex, appraising, then softened with false pity. "Thomas's boy, eh? Sad tale that. But the Lord heals all wounds, even those of the flesh." Alex's jaw tightened, but Eli stepped forward, voice level. "He's family, Reverend. And welcome." The words were a gauntlet thrown, subtle as a shadow, but Hayes caught it, his smile thinning. "Careful, son. Blood don't always mean blessing." He drove off with a sermon pamphlet tucked under the wiper, leaving the air tasting of judgment. That night, tension simmered into confrontation when Buddy Klein, Jack's oldest ranch hand and town busybody, cornered Alex by the pump house. Buddy, 60 and sour as spoiled milk, had been Tommy's tormentor back in the day, spitting tobacco juice and slurs after church youth group. "Heard you're carrying on like your daddy." Buddy sneered, breath rank with chew. "Prancin' round Eli like a filly in heat. This here's God's country. Ain't room for your kind." Alex squared up, fists clenched but voice steady. "My kind. Folks who work dawn to dusk without bellyache, or ones who hide behind Bibles to hate what they fear." Buddy lunged, knuckles grazing Alex's cheek before Eli barreled in, shoving the older man back with a force born of bottled fury. "Enough," Eli roared, chest heaving, the scuffle drawing Jack from the house at a run. Buddy sputtered excuses, but Jack's glare silenced him. "Pack your kit, Buddy. You're done here." The dismissal echoed like thunder, Buddy's truck peeling out in a spray of gravel, tail lights fading into the dusk. In the aftermath, as Eli dabbed antiseptic on Alex's split lip, the barn air thick with unspoken charges, Jack hovered in the doorway, face a mask of conflict. "You fight for him?" Jack asked Eli, not accusation, but off-threading the words. Eli met his father's eyes, iodine-stained cloth paused. "I'd fight for what's right. For once." The incident rippled outward, igniting a firestorm in Lubbock. By Monday, the local paper ran a blurb, "Harlan Ranch ejects longtime hand amid family reunion drama," and whispers swelled to shouts at the feed co-op. Old Wilkins pulled their account entirely, citing moral concerns, leaving Jack to stare at empty silos and a ledger bleeding red. "They're coming for us," Jack muttered over dinner, forks stabbing potatoes like enemies. Alex pushed his chair back, standing abrupt. "Then let him. I'm not here to burn your world, just to find mine. If that's too much Harlan for you, say the word." The challenge hung, and Jack's gaze flicked to Eli, seeing the mirror of his own youth in his son's defiant chin, the same fire Tommy had carried. Eli couldn't sleep, the weight of the day pressing like a storm cloud. He slipped out to the rise behind the house, where Tommy's ashes, smuggled back by a cousin and scattered in secret, mingled with the wild grasses. Alex found him there, blanket wrapped against the chill, and sat close, their silence a bridge over chasms. "You didn't have to fire Buddy," Alex said finally, voice low. "Not for me." Eli turned, moonlight silvering his features, vulnerability cracking his voice. "Not just for you. For me. For us, maybe, if there's an us." The confession bloomed, fragile as a prairie flower, and Alex's hand found Eli's, fingers lacing tentative, a touch that spoke volumes in its tremble. No rush, no demand. Just the profound ache of two souls recognizing home in each other. But dawn brought reckoning. Jack, sleepless and soul-sick, drove into town alone, parking outside the church where stained glass glowed like accusations. Reverend Hayes was in the garden, pruning roses with shears that snipped too sharp. Jack Harlan, the Reverend greeted, wiping dirted hands. Come to confess? Jack leaned on the picket fence, voice rough. Come to ask why? Why we let fear eat our boys alive. Tommy, Eli, they're good men. Loving wrong don't make 'em wrong. Hayes paused, shears still, his face folding into lines of long-buried doubt. The book says love thy neighbor. Jack cut in, fire in his belly for the first time in years. Maybe I've been reading it backward. Back at the ranch, Eli and Alex worked the branding, irons glowing red in the fire pit, calves bawling their protests. The rhythm was hypnotic, lasso, wrestle, sear, and in the lulls, their eyes met, a private language blooming. But as the sun dipped low, a pickup rumbled up the drive. Clara, Eli's mother, stepping out in her Sunday best, face pale as milkweed. She'd heard the rumors, the firing, the whispers of sodomite kin circling like vultures. Jack, she said, voice quavering, ignoring the men in the corral. What have you done to our boy? The confrontation erupted, words flying like sparks from the forge, Clara's Bible thumping the hood as she decried the plague Tommy brought back. Eli approached, Alex at his flank, and for the first time, he stood tall. Mom, it's not plague. It's me. And I love him. The admission shattered the air, Clara's hand flying to her mouth, eyes wide with the horror of truth unveiled. She fled in tears, but not before Jack stepped forward, voice steady. Clara, go. But know this. Our son's heart ain't for sale to your fears. As her taillights vanished, the family stood in the dust, bound tighter by the brake, the horizon stretching endless with possibility and peril. The backlash crested like a rogue wave, crashing over the Harlan Ranch in boycotts and broken fences. Literally, when shadows cut wire under moonless skies, cattle scattering like accusations. Jack posted the back 40 himself, nights blurring into a vigil of vigilance and vigilante thoughts, his rifle a cold comfort against the isolation gnawing deeper. Eli threw himself into the fray, mending by day, patrolling by night. But his mind wandered to Alex's quiet laugh over shared smokes on the porch, the way his touch lingered now, casual as breath, but electric as live wire. Love, Eli realized, wasn't the storm. It was the eye, calm amid chaos, where you found your footing. Alex, for his part, wrestled shadows of his own. Nights found him poring over Tommy's journal by flashlight in the guest room. Really the old sewing alcove, with its quilt rack and faint lavender scent, tracing his father's words like braille for the heart. They'll hate you for blooming different, son. One entry read, dated just before the diagnosis. But roots run deep. Find soil that lets you grow. Sacramento called, a job and a fresh start. But leaving meant severing the fragile vine he'd twined here, with Eli's blue-eyed gaze and Jack's grudging grunts of approval over mended gates. Was he running again, like Tommy, or staying to fight for a legacy reclaimed? Town turned hostile, the diner refusing service with pasted-on smiles, the gas station clerk pumping fuel slow as molasses while muttering prayers under breath. Eli confronted it head-on at the co-op, where farmers gathered like crows, their stares pecking at him. Y'all got a problem with Harlan's loving true? He challenged, voice carrying over the hum of tractors. Murmurs swelled, but old Mrs. Delgado, widow of the feed supplier, arthritic hands clutching her purse, spoke up. Boy, I knew Tommy. He fixed my well pump in '92, no charge, when my Harry was dying. If lovin' like that made him kind, who are we to judge? The words rippled, a crack in the dam, and for a moment, Eli breathed easier, the weight lifting just a fraction. But personal storms brewed fiercer. Clara returned unannounced, this time with Father Michaels in tow, the priest's collar starched stiff as his dogma. They cornered Eli in the kitchen, Alex banished to the barn, Jack away fetching wire. This delusion ends now, Clara hissed, clutching a pamphlet on reparative prayer. Eli's stomach twisted, old guilt's rising like bile. It's not delusion, Mom. It's who I am. Alex. He sees me, all of me, and doesn't flinch. Michaels leaned in, voice oily. The flesh tempts, son. But salvation waits for those who repent. Eli's fists balled, the room spinning with memories of tearful confessions in that very church, promises broken by dawn's light. Repent? For loving? You'd have me hate myself to save your soul. The argument escalated, voices echoing off the rafters, until Jack burst through the door, rain slicked from an early squall. Out! He thundered, positioning between them like a human barricade. Clara, you birthed him, don't unmake him now. Michaels blustered, but Jack's glare, forged in years of loss, sent him retreating, Clara trailing with a sob that twisted like a knife. In the silence, Jack turned to Eli, hand heavy on his shoulder. I ain't perfect, son. Failed Tommy, near failed you. But we're Harlans, we bend, don't break. Eli nodded, throat thick, the paternal touch a lifeline in the tempest. As summer scorched the plains, turning grass to tinder, Eli and Alex's bond deepened in stolen moments. Dawn rides where they raced across the mesa, wind whipping confessions free, evenings by the creek, feet dangling in cool shallows, sharing dreams of a ranch their own, free of chains. One twilight, as dragonflies skimmed the water like living jewels, Alex voiced the fear gnawing him. What if I stay? Town'll crucify you both. Eli traced a finger along Alex's palm, mapping scars from city brawls. Then we build higher walls. Or burn the old ones down. Their lips met then, soft and searching, a kiss born of survival's fire, profound, not passionate in the flesh, but in the soul's quiet roar. It was promise, peril, the first step over the abyss. Yet twists lurked in the underbrush. A letter arrived, postmarked San Francisco, from Tommy's old lover, Daniel, a widower now, enclosing photos of Alex as a toddler on his father's knee, and a deed fragment. Half the Harlan Ranch, willed to Tommy in secret, contested by distant cousins sniffing blood in the water. Your uncle never stopped fighting for this land, Daniel wrote. Claim it, for him, for you. Jack read it by lamplight, hands shaking, the past surging like a flash flood. Cousins in Austin, kin he'd written off as vultures, now lawyered up to seize the property, citing Tommy's immoral estate as forfeit. The fight shifted from whispers to courtrooms, family against family, love's legacy on trial. Eli rallied, contacting a pro bono lawyer from the city's LGBTQ center. A bold move that leaked to the press, headlines screaming, ranch feud exposes closeted kin. Reporters swarmed the gate, cameras flashing like vulture eyes, forcing the Harlans into a bunker mentality. Alex, thrust into the spotlight, faced down, a microphone thrust in his face. This ain't about scandal. It's about honoring a man who loved hard and lost everything for it. His words aired statewide, a spark in dry grass, igniting support from unlikely quarters, urban allies, queer ranches in the hill country, even a few locals shamed into solidarity. But the deepest cut came from within. Jack, poring over legal briefs, uncovered a letter Tommy had written him, never sent. Brother, I forgive the door you slammed. But don't slam it on Eli. He's got my heart, and yours, beating wild. The revelation undid Jack, tears flowing free in the empty chapel of the barn, where he prayed not for cures, but for courage. Emerging, he gathered Eli and Alex by the fire pit, embers glowing like resolve. We fight. Together. No more hiding. The vow sealed their triad, blood and chosen, against the gathering storm. The courtroom in Lubbock loomed like a coliseum of judgment, its oak-paneled walls echoing with the ghosts of verdicts past. The cousins, slick-suited vultures from Austin, led by Cousin Ray with his comb-over and condescending drawl, painted Tommy as a prodigal wastrel, his will of forgery born of delusion. The deceased's lifestyle rendered him unfit to bequeath property, Ray's lawyer intoned, voice dripping disdain, as exhibits flashed Tommy's obituary, aides bolded like a scarlet letter. Jack sat ramrod straight in the gallery, knuckles white on the bench, Eli beside him gripping Alex's hand under the rail, a secret anchor in the public glare. Alex took the stand first, voice steady as he recounted childhood fragments, Tommy's bedtime stories of Texas stars, the locket with a faded ranch photo pressed into his palm at their last goodbye. He wanted me to know home, Alex said, eyes locking on the judge, a stern woman with silver hair and a gaze that missed nothing. Not the hate, but the heart of it. The cousin's lawyer pounced, dredging up bar tabs and associates from San Francisco records, implying debauchery. Alex didn't flinch. My father loved one man, deeply, till the end. That's not vice, it's valor. Murmurs rippled through the room, a few nods from the back, where supporters from the Queer Alliance sat vigilant. Eli's testimony cracked the facade widest. Called as character witness, he faced Ray's leer across the aisle, the cousin who'd once sneered at Tommy's city sickness at family reunions. State your relation to the deceased, the lawyer prompted. Eli swallowed, the words a leap. Uncle. And, like a mirror, he taught me, even gone, that love don't pick sides, it picks you. The admission hung, bold as brass, and gasps dotted the benches. Clara, in the third row, dabbed tears, her presence a silent shift from condemnation to contemplation. Eli pressed on, detailing the ranch's sweat and soul, how Tommy's bequest wasn't greed but grace, a bridge over the chasm Jack had carved. But the twist gut-punched. Ray produced a forged affidavit, witnessed by Buddy Klein, claiming Jack had disowned Tommy outright, nullifying any inheritance. Blood feud. The lawyer crowed. Proves unworthiness. Jack surged forward, but Eli's hand on his arm held him, fury leashed to strategy. Their lawyer, Ms. Rivera, a fierce Latina from the city firm, countered with Tommy's journal, entered as evidence, its pages a testament to enduring love for family and land. This isn't about morality, she argued, voice slicing clean. It's about equity. Deny this, and you endorse erasure. The judge recessed, the gavels crack a thunderclap, leaving the Harlans in a holding room thick with tension. Alex paced, green eyes stormy. They're twisting him into a monster to steal what's ours. Eli pulled him close, foreheads touching in a moment of raw intimacy. Not ours, there's two. Tommy's fight was for all of us, straight or not. Jack watched, a pang of paternal pride mingling with sorrow for the years stolen by silence. I got amends to make, he rumbled, clapping Alex's shoulder. To you, boy. For the father I failed. Alex's nod was small, but the thaw in his eyes was seismic. Outside, the media frenzy peaked. Trucks from Austin stations, reporters shouting questions like buckshot. Mr. Harlan, is it true your son is involved? One yelled at Eli. He turned, chin lifted, Alex's hand warm in his. Involved? I'm in love. With Alex. And proud. The declaration flashed live, a viral spark that trended overnight, drawing letters of support flooding the ranch P.O. box, from queer kids in small towns, affirming parents, even a celebrity rancher from California pledging legal aid. But darkness followed light. Threats scrawled on the mailbox, a cross burned shallow in the front pasture, the acrid smoke waking them at midnight. Clara arrived at dawn, uninvited but unbowed, bearing coffee and Clara's cornbread, peace offerings wrapped in wax paper. I saw the news, she said, voice hushed in the kitchen's yellow light. My boy. Standing tall. Jack poured her a cup, the ritual a bridge. We all are, Clara. Time to join or step aside. She glanced at Eli and Alex, sharing a quiet breakfast, hands brushing over jam jars. Tears welled, but she wiped them fierce. I stepped aside once. Won't again. The reconciliation was tentative, a seedling in cracked soil, but it rooted deep. Clara staying to help with calves, her prayers shifting from pleas for change to pleas for strength. The verdict dropped a week later, the courtroom packed to bursting. The judge's voice rang clear. The will stands. The Harlan Ranch remains undivided, a legacy of resilience over prejudice. Cheers erupted from the supporters, Ray's face crumpling like wet newsprint as he slunk out. But victory soured swift. A cousin's desperate appeal, filed hours later, tying the land in knots of litigation. They won't stop, Ms. Rivera warned over celebratory beers at the house. This is war now. In the quiet after, Eli led Alex to the rise, Tommy's scattering spot, where wildflowers nodded in the breeze. Marry me, Eli said, abrupt as a heartbeat, a simple band of twisted wire from the fence in his palm. Alex laughed, teary, slipping it on. Here? With the ghosts watching. Especially here. They approve. Their embrace was fierce, emotions cresting in waves of joy and jagged fear. The love that had bloomed in storm's shadow now tested by gales unending. Yet a deeper revelation waited. Daniel, Tommy's lover, arrived unannounced, silver-haired and soft-spoken, bearing a box of letters. Tommy's unsent missives to Jack, bundled with a paternity test. Alex wasn't just nephew. A clinic mix-up in Tommy's final days meant Eli and Alex shared blood closer than suspected, half-brothers in a twist of fate's cruel irony. "He wanted to tell you," Daniel said, voice breaking. But time ran out. The news landed like lightning, splintering joy into confusion, love's purity questioned, bonds reframed in biology's harsh light. The revelation hung over the ranch like a pall, the box of letters unopened on the kitchen table, a Pandora's relic mocking their fragile peace. Eli stared at it through breakfast fog, coffee going cold, the wire ring on his fingers suddenly heavy as chains. Half-brothers. The word echoed, twisting the tenderness he'd felt for Alex into a labyrinth of taboo and torment. Was it fate's final jest, or a sign to sever what they'd built? Alex, pale as the morning milk, avoided his eyes, murmuring excuses about fence checks, his departure to Sacramento now a siren call laced with escape. Jack, ever the anchor, gathered them in the living room that evening, fire crackling against the chill of early fall. Daniel had stayed, his presence a gentle intrusion, sharing stories of Tommy's laugh in fog-shrouded parks, his hands calloused from odd jobs to fund their dreams. "He never hated you, Jack," Daniel said, passing the box. "Just hurt too deep to bridge it." Jack opened it first, letters spilling like autumn leaves. Pleas for reconciliation, sketches of the ranch reborn under kinder suns, confessions of fatherhood's quiet joys with Alex. One, dated weeks before Tommy's end, read, "Tell Eli he's brave. Tell my brother, love wins wars we don't fight alone." Tears traced Jack's weathered cheeks, but resolve hardened his voice. "Biology's just paper. Heart's what counts." He looked to Eli, then Alex, the room pulsing with the weight of choice. Eli stood, crossing to Alex, hand extended. "Doesn't change this," he said, voice fierce despite the crack. "You're my brother in every way that matters, and more. We redefine it, or we let it define us." Alex searched his face, green eyes stormy, then clasped the hand, pulling Eli into a hug that bridged the chasm. Not lovers in flesh, but soulmates forged in fire. The bond evolving, deepening into something profound, unbreakable. Clara, witnessing from the doorway, crossed herself but nodded, her transformation a quiet miracle. "The Lord's got a funny way of teaching," she murmured, joining the circle, her hand on Eli's shoulder a benediction long withheld. Daniel smiled, weary lines softening. "Tommy'd be proud. Of all of you." The night unfolded in stories, laughter threading grief, the family mending like a quilt patched with care, threads of blood and choice woven tight. But the cousins' appeal loomed, a shadow lengthening into winter's bite. Court dates piled like snowdrifts, affidavits flying like flurries, Ray's venom now public in op-eds decrying deviant inheritance. The ranch teetered financially, creditors circling as the boycott bit deep, forcing Jack to sell off heirloom tack and lease grazing rights. Eli and Alex innovated, reviving Tommy's old apiary, honey jars labeled Harlan Heart, sold at farmers markets where supporters swelled ranks. Queers from Dallas drove hours for jars and handshakes, their stories a chorus. "You give us hope, boys." In places like this, that's revolution. Yet internal tempests raged. Eli battled doubt in the dead hours, wandering the pastures whispering to stars, questioning if their love, brotherly now, in name and depth, doomed them to isolation. Alex, too, frayed, his Sacramento offer rescinded amid the scandal, leaving him adrift. One blizzard night, snow blanketing the world white as surrender, they clashed in the barn, words sharp as icicles. "You think I can stay, watch you marry some girl to fit?" Alex shouted, hay fork trembling in grip. Eli whirled, eyes blazing. "Mary? I'd burn the world first. You're my everything. Brother, friend, the beat in my chest. If that's sin, sign me up." The fight deflated into sobs, arms enfolding, reaffirming the core. Love's forms shift, but essence endures. Spring thawed the fields and the case. Ms. Rivera's team unearthing Ray's forgery. Buddy Klein's signature bought, with bourbon and bitterness, recanted under oath. The appeal crumbled, the ranch secured, cousins slinking back to Austin with tails tucked. Victory parade was modest. A bonfire on the rise, honey mead flowing, locals trickling in with covered dishes, Mrs. Delgado leading, Reverend Hayes trailing, his sermon now on prodigal sons welcomed home. Clara danced with Jack, tentative steps toward amends, while Eli and Alex stood arm in arm, toasting Tommy's spirit in the flames. But the ultimate twist unfurled in summer's heat. A letter from Ray, not threat but olive branch, remorse scrawled in shaky hand, admitting fear's poison, offering alliance for the ranch's future. Tommy was right about you, Jack. Blood's thicker than grudge. Jack burned it unread, but kept the envelope, a reminder that redemption circles back. Years later, the Harlan Ranch thrived, expanded with eco-tours for queer travelers, a haven etched in pride flags fluttering beside the stars. Eli and Alex, brothers eternal, built lives intertwined. Eli with a partner from the Alliance, a quiet vet named Sam. Alex wedding an artist from the city, their home a cabin on the hill. Jack, grayed and gentled, rocked on the porch with Clara, mending what time allowed. Love, they learned, wasn't a straight path but a prairie trail, winding, wild, leading home through every storm.